Okay, welcome everybody, and welcome to the October 13th Ad Hoc Committee on Affordable Housing's meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:07. And Jennifer, if you don't mind just taking note of who's here. I don't think we need to do the roll call necessarily in the same way that we do in the council, where we have, looks like myself, Sarah, Terry, and Katie.
And then you have your technical advisors, Kathy Ward and Hannah Rudd. And Rebecca, are you on the line with Stephen? Okay, let me just.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, I'll rename you. I think if I can rename. Great, and then we've got Ryan, of course, here as well. Ryan Aylesworth.
Great. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes, and if they have, are there any edits or changes? If not, I'd like,
I move to accept the minutes as written.
I'll second that. Terry will second that. All in favor, raise your hand. Perfect. It's unanimous. And Jennifer, was there anyone from the public who wanted to opportunity to comment?
We did not receive any anyone who would like to speak.
Great. So that means that we can move right into the committee draft charge. Everyone has had a chance to take a look. I've got it up here, and anybody have anything right off the bat that they want to comment or make any suggestions on with the draft charge? I saw Terry's hand first.
Sarah, did you want to go first? I saw your hand up.
No, it's fine.
So I have a few things. I don't have to do them all at once. The first thing is I'm not clear who appoints the committee, whether that will be done by the town manager, whether that will be done by the mayor, whether that will be done by the town council, whether it will go through committee of committees to the town council.
It looks like from what I'm looking at, membership under section 4 says it'll be appointed by the town council, but I also was confused as to whether or not that would be through the committee on committees. And I don't know if that's just a additional language or if it's just in practice, that's how it's done. But in my mind, I was envisioning the membership going through the committee on committees like the other ones.
Okay.
I think because the town council that has appointed it, that Linda had taken this. Linda, I'm going to let you chime in because you kind of.
We went to the last group that you created, and it was the Commission on Human Rights. And so we tried to pull some of the language from that. And that's where the town, I believe where the town council came from. This was also a merge with the Fairfield Affordable Housing Committee ordinance that they had. I am not as familiar with, I assumed as well it would be the Committee on Committees. So that, but I don't know if that's something that's in practice or if the council has formalize that in writing, that appointments that the council makes to committees usually go through the committee on committees, I believe, as recommendations, as kind of vetting, and before it comes to the council. So the language wasn't in there, but that was my assumption based on council's practice.
So that's not all of the committees go through the committee on committees.
Okay.
So. And even there's some things that are actually appointed by the town manager.
Town manager, yeah. I know the Economic Development Commission and the Conservation Commission, I believe, are town manager appointees. So if you'd like us to add, we can always add language that says appointed by the town council upon recommendation of the Committee on Committees.
And I'm not actually sure that's the best way to do it. I'm
Okay.
There. I could be persuaded that there's a better way to do it. since Ryan's on the call, I wonder if he has any thoughts on that.
I don't know that I have strong feelings one way or the other. I think in some ways it's interesting, that, and I think Linda has it right. The Conservation Commission and the EDC are the two that come to my mind that are town manager appointments. I don't want to say that that's arbitrary, but I guess I have wondered from time to time what the sort of back history on that was, that those two were carved out. I'm certainly not concerned about taking over responsibility for making those appointments, but at the same time, I don't have a burning, a burning preference one way or the other.
So for me, when I think about staffing committees, I've been on the committee, on committees for years now, and it's not really a very, it's not a system that works well, and for multiple reasons. And one of the best committees I ever saw was the one that Paul Shapiro put together, the school building committee, where people, rather than waiting for people to volunteer, where you actually go out and you look for people to fill slots. So even then we could have it be like a mayor appointed,
I'm not sure.
I would say
how-
there, sorry.
I'm just wondering if then does it become a political, a little bit more of a political committee if the mayor does it, or?
Kathy, what are your thoughts on how this school board, the school building committee functioned? And
Well, you're correct. Paul and I did get together and discuss who we thought would be good candidates on the school board, on the school building committee, and who we thought might be a good chair. So yes, we did that. I'm not sure if I were to do it again, I would be as non-transparent as we were. So perhaps if there's a better way of doing this, that maybe should be considered.
If we
So-
leave it as appointment by the town council, it kind of leaves it open-ended on how those recommendations are made to the town council. And we can certainly bring this up at the next town council meeting to see what others may want, including the mayor. But I'm still in favor of the town council being the one who appoints. I agree with Terry. It doesn't necessarily have to go through the committee on committees.
again, it's not the problem of going through the committee on committees. It's the problem of that it's not a system of going out and finding the right people. It's a
So it's
system.
more volunteers as opposed to recruiting.
Yeah, I think this is such an important committee that recruiting is key, and maybe the committee on committee, or maybe this group needs to be the recruiters. I mean, one thing we could do is just appoint ourselves to encourage people to apply. But generally speaking, folks feel like it, it's the old saying, if the club wants me, I really don't want to be part of that club. When people are far more likely to think that their voice matters and that they're going to make a difference if they're asked to be part of something, rather than simply sort of a blanket, if anybody's interested in doing this.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm fine with this group being tasked before we dissolve. Obviously, we want to set up the permanent committee to be successful, tasking us with reaching out and getting the right people. And for me, I agree with you, Terry. I don't want this to be a passive kind of sit back and wait. I mean, I'm envisioning, if we do that, what if 4 people apply? Then we just wait till the other 3 come in, that sort of deal. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being active, you know, and I don't necessarily know that has to be written into the draft and putting that on each mayor in the future, or, you know, that sort of deal. But I agree with Kathy that the transparency, and if I'm misquoting you, Kathy, correct me, but I like the idea of the transparency and at least it being, the appointments being approved by the town council.
We did that with the school board. It was just that,
Yeah.
as I recall, Kathy and Paul sort of rallied the troops to get the various people. And so it did go through committees.
And I've
It's also a
actually,
slow process because we only meet monthly.
right,
And I did check one thing because I know there's a question as to why certain things are the town manager. That is a statutory issue. So the Conservation Commission and the Economic Development Commission are established by statute. And it specifically says the chief executive officer of the municipality is responsible for those appointments. So that's why there's a difference there.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
So if Sarah, did you want to jump in and make a comment on something?
No, go ahead. I was going to make a general comment that I liked the specificity of it. I thought you guys did a nice job putting it together. I liked, you know, looking for members with particular experience.
So I'm going to pain in the butt and go the opposite way with that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
from being on committees is that it's hard to always find the right people. And so then what happens is those stay open with this kind of language. So I don't mind having a preference for these sorts of folks, but I don't want it to be that it's a requirement that each of these slots. We just, for one of a very important committee, the Human Services Committee, we just went through a process of taking out a lot of the requirements simply because it was hard to find the people. And actually some of the things have become so outdated that positions didn't even really exist anymore. So that's my worry there. I think these are the right sort of people to be on the committee.
Right.
Having it long-term a requirement, I think makes it difficult to staff.
So Terry, what we had put in, because Jen and I had the same conversation, is that if possible, it should include.
Yeah,
Does that work, or would you prefer some different language on that?
I'm worried about the should, like how future people might anticipate the should.
Okay.
I'm not sure what else to put there. I like the if possible.
what about, if possible, the committee will include?
I do think that dials it back a little bit from the should.
And I
Okay.
also, and in that same line of thinking, the members shall reflect the diversity of the community and include members that would benefit from affordable housing community opportunities. I like that goal.
Members should.
I don't know if we should make it a shall or should. One, I don't know necessarily whose definition of diversity of the community that we'd be going by. For me, it might be different than Terry, you know, and so I like having that kind of thinking, and so that the committee on committees people will see that. But to hamstring or tie their hands in such a way that, you know, do we have to pass up on somebody who'd be a great candidate, but maybe they don't fit that aspect of it. And I don't know if we'll automatically have somebody that will be I'm thinking of who are we thinking of when we say benefit from affordable housing opportunities? Residents?
Residents with, and we were trying to find a way to say it with, you know, basically that would be income eligible. So in other words, you know, that we're looking at that we're including the population we're trying to serve with this committee. One thought I had is maybe we just change that paragraph 4 to say, something to the effect of goals for membership include the following, diverse representation. Okay.
Yeah, and so diverse representation should be, and I think Sam's right, diverse representation, it might not be clear enough language that's more clearly states that it's an individual who's under-resourced, or family that's from a family who's under-resourced who would
Okay.
in fact live in such housing. That's not the right language, but something that captures that.
Okay.
And I include it as part of the A, B, C, D, like it would be one of those.
Right. So that basically that after it says members shall be appointed by the town council, the next thing would say goals for membership include the following, and we'll just have,
Or that if
That-
possible, the committee will include.
How about desirable membership characteristics include or something like that?
Yeah, I think any of those works.
Yeah.
So somebody mentioned earlier about not making this political. I think that the language in here about members of various parties makes it political. I don't think we need that for this. I think that clearly affordable housing is a goal for the whole community. And I think if we're worried about having too many Democrats or too many Republicans or too many independents, that we want people who care about this issue, and counting whether they're blue or red or purple. I don't think it will, I think it immediately makes this a political process. And it's been so nice working on this with this ad hoc committee, and that we all care very much about this issue.
so delete number 3.
Yeah, I don't see that as really benefiting the conversation.
I agree with Terry.
Thank you.
Okay.
And before we go any further, I know Terry, you had a few things, but Sarah, I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity too.
I think that was all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that's what you had done before, Terry. I get it now.
In terms of oversee the implementation of the Mansfield Affordable Housing Plan, what do we think that means?
I think it's basically looking at the goals and the strategies and trying to push those forward so that, that becomes part of the annual report to the council is what is the committee doing to move those initiatives forward? Obviously, there is going to be things that require council action. So this is still advisory to the council, but they're basically kind of taking the lead and saying, okay, these are the goals and strategies. How do we advance these over the next 5 years?
I wonder if there's a better word than oversee. That it's more than that it's active.
Is it more of developing a strategic plan over a 5-year period? With the focus being on the Mansfield
It
Affordable.
maybe develop action plans
about-
to implement the
Mhm.
affordable housing plan.
That's better.
What about responsible for implementation of Mansfield's affordable housing plan?
Implement Mansfield's affordable housing plan.
I
Yeah,
think that's much clearer.
I actually would want number 2 to be number 1, so that it's clear that this committee is serving in advisory capacity, and then number 2, or even it could be a subsection of 1, be that implementation of Mansfield's affordable housing plan. So that way it's tied in and it's clear that it's part of that advisory capacity to the town council and others.
Okay, so combine 2 and 1 with the language of serving in an advisory committee being first.
Yep.
And
So
Sorry.
serve in an advisory capacity to the town council, PZC, and other boards and commissions on issues related to affordable housing and implement, do you want to?
And implementation of the,
I would want the, and implementation, like the number one that's on the,
Yep.
right,
to be A for the serve in an advisory capacity.
okay, so breaking two up, so serve in advisory capacity to the town council, planning, zoning, and other boards and commissions on issues related to A, implementing the affordable housing plan. Or,
So, this is where I wish we were in person, but number two becomes number one.
right, serve in advisory capacity,
And
yep,
number one becomes subsection A.
of that serve in,
Yes.
yep.
Do you want me to share my screen with it or no? Is that not necessary?
Are you editing, Jen?
I'm trying. So I have, can you, with the Zoom, it's hard.
Yeah.
You can see my screen. So I,
Yes,
so
yep.
I haven't wordsmithed this at all. I've just sort of been trying to take
Okay.
notes, but, so under B charge, serve an advisory capacity to the town council, PZC, and other boards and commissions on issue related.
I would keep the language you had where it goes to affordable housing. So get rid of the red in that one.
Okay,
And then where you have oversee deleted, keep,
Yep.
no, don't change that, but instead of it being 2, it'll be A. So it'll be subsection 1A.
okay.
I guess I want to chime in with some thoughts here, if that's okay. I liked, and I unfortunately don't have it open now in front of me, so I can't see exactly what Jennifer had on the screen, but to me, there's a little bit of incongruity with saying that this committee's advisory and then saying it's responsible for the implementation of a plan. I kind of like the idea of saying it's advisory in nature, et cetera, like, I think what Jennifer was saying in regards to implementation of the plan. I think implementation, I mean, that's a very action-oriented word. That's something that frankly, I think would be done in a lot of ways at a staff level, an employee level implementation of aspects of the plan. I don't think of an advisory committee as being one to necessarily be the one implementing all aspects of the plan, but certainly, providing guidance and counsel to the town council and interfacing with staff. To me, that I guess that captures it maybe a little bit more what we're trying to do here.
So Ryan, with that, would you be okay with the implementation being, instead of it saying implementation, but I liked what you said, provide guidance on implementation of Mansfield Affordable Housing Plan and assist in future updates of the plan?
Exactly. I mean, definitely, playing a role in implementation. I'm not arguing that point. I think that needs to be front and center. I'm just saying, making it sound like this committee is responsible for implementing it. That doesn't seem to line up with, I guess, what I understood to be a core goal here, but certainly,
Yeah.
The way you just stated it is what I was driving at.
The language right now looks good.
Do you see what I said, sir? Are you talking about what I just wrote, Terry?
Yeah, I think that looks good. I think.
Okay, sir, so I have serve in an advisory capacity to the
Wow.
town council, PZC, and other boards and commissions on issues related to affordable housing, including implementation of the Mansfield Affordable Housing Plan.
Jen, can we
Nailed.
say implementation of and updates to?
Of
Perfect.
and update. This is all editing, writing by committee. It's always fun. Okay, that's good.
So then I think we can delete A because we've now just incorporated.
Yeah,
This is actually one thing where Zoom is helpful.
yeah. Okay, so and what about the rest? Two is provide recommendations to the town council related to the Affordable Housing Trust. Everyone else has that in front of them, hopefully.
Yep.
Let's see.
So for the now number 3, provide opportunities for community input it develops recommendations and priorities. What are you trying, what does that mean?
I think what we were trying to do is include community engagement here. So for example, if the committee says, all right, we're putting together kind of our goals for the next year and our action plan, what should some of those priorities be? Especially as they're looking at, expenditures, as you know, the plan is broad in terms of what we can potentially do with a housing trust. So how do you get community input is we start looking at priorities for spending, but we're just trying to embed that engagement piece in here. So, it's not just the public comment portion of a meeting necessarily, but actually, thinking about how can we get feedback and engage the community as we develop recommendations.
If you could scroll back down, I think I might have some phraseology for that. What about provide opportunities for community input to shape priorities or recommendations and priorities?
And what about to guide recommendations and priorities? Because I don't know if I'd want, well. I don't
Yeah, I'm
know
not
if
married to the word shape. Guide. There are probably a number of synonyms that kind of get at what
yeah.
the spirit of what I'm thinking.
And is this for trust fund expenditures, or is this for is this broader, this particular statement?
It's, I would say broader. It could include trust fund priorities, but it could also look at other actions under the affordable housing plan.
So do you just tack on the phrase relative to affordable housing after priorities?
Yeah, I was saying, related to. That makes sense? Okay.
Yeah, do you mind scrolling down a little bit more too, Jen? Thank you. Perfect.
I like the annual report.
Yeah. I think that there's just so much interest in this and how it's gonna, I think that from everyone I've talked to about this, both who is engaged in the town, in terms of like on a commission or on the council or anything like that, and even people who are not, this is viewed as a really important step in what our community needs, in getting, it'll satisfy a number of things, not only all the affordable housing goals that we have, but also some of the neighborhood stabilization goals, and things like that.
Should we put a month for the annual report?
I actually thought about that. I was like, I think I had a draft at one point that was kind of like within 3 months of the end of the fiscal year, but then I was like, I didn't know how specific we wanted to be on that. If there was a specific timing when you would want to see this each year. It could be annually from the date of when they start. You could put a month.
I'm just thinking of the date, not so much that there's a particular time of the year that's better for us than other times, but just to make sure it happens.
Happens.
So, that
I think
happens. Whatever. Probably we don't want it during budget season.
the draft Affordable Housing Trust Fund ordinance does have a date for report. So
Oh,
is that, which would be the same thing, right?
yeah. Maybe that's where that 90 days went in.
Yeah, it is.
The only problem with that having it 90 days from something would be that it could up in budget season. So we want to make sure that it's like not.
I think it was the end
It
of the
says
fiscal
90 days
year,
at the
so
end
it
of
would
the fiscal
be,
year.
Oh,
yeah,
the
so it'd be
fiscal year.
September 30th, yeah.
Okay, September seems great.
And I
Did you want
think
me
what that also does is that's before your budget season starts, so that also, you can see where things are going and help shape the budget as you develop it by having it in the fall.
I agree. I think it needs to be in the fall before they start on their budgets and all of that, so that we'll have good numbers to give them. Give the town council.
So would you like us to have that in the committee charge, or do you want to just have that in the trust fund, or both?
I say both, because we're not always looking at everything, and I do think this is important. And I think actually, as Katie just said, that it does make an awful lot of sense to think about it as we're going into budget season. So
Maybe we should have the same language that is in the trust fund ordinance as is in the, have it be consistent in the committee charge and in the trust fund ordinance.
Yep.
That makes sense?
yeah.
So Jen, it's within 90 days of the end of the fiscal year is what's in the trust fund ordinance.
Okay. All right.
Anything else for the committee charge? Great.
To say thank you to staff for putting this together so quickly
Yes.
and making it so easy for us.
That's what we're here for. And I think there's only one thing left to wordsmith from your discussion, which is how we deal with the residents that would benefit from affordable housing opportunities. So we'll make that change. And with that additional change, is this something that you're ready to formally send to the council for consideration?
I almost want to see if we can get through the ordinance as well, because I think it'd be important for the town council to see both.
See both. Okay. Then let's see where we are with the ordinance and.
But I'd be okay taking a vote because we've got everybody, we've got a quorum and going forward like that. So with that, let's move on to the ordinance. And thank you for screen sharing.
Mhm.
And thank you for editing on the fly, Jennifer.
A lot of pressure.
Doing great. And I understand, it's more helpful to have it where we're all looking at the same thing.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm joking. This is important stuff, so yeah.
So I would say similar to the committee, we started with the Fairfield and then kind of built from there and reorganized and tried to be a little clearer. There was some language that we struggled with in Fairfield. So, but again, this is also just a starting point for you to review. We do not have a chapter number. I don't know who assigns those things. So right now it's chapter X. And
Yeah. Did anybody have any comments or edits that they would like to start off with?
I'm curious, to say that a fund does not lapse, does that say that it's the money stays in it? Is that what that's communicating?
yes. So as opposed to, for example, annual departmental budgets, which are good through June 30th, that this is something that,
Correct.
yes.
And I like the language in here, not on the screen, but that says that we can spend it down to zero, but that doesn't close the fund. So I see that the sources of funding include but not limited to building permit fees, inclusionary zoning fees. I thought we had also included, or maybe I'm just thinking this, or maybe it's covered in what this is said, but if we were to raise the mill rate and have, I'm not as good with numbers, but say we just raise it 1 mill rate and we want all the taxes collected from that mill rate to go towards this fund, would this ordinance cover that?
It's include but not limited to, but I would assume, and I will defer to Ryan on maybe we could add something regarding, annual budget appropriations.
Yeah. Or appropriations by the town council.
Yeah, appropriations by the town council.
Okay,
Thumbs up to that.
because I know that there are some people who, or I should say, I would believe that the town council would want to put this as a priority in the next budget round. I certainly,
I would actually just say, municipal appropriations.
Yeah, oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here, Ryan.
Ryan is the budget guru.
Shucks, folks, it weren't nothing.
I did confirm with Human Services, and they do, because they do allow for or give a receipt so that people can get a tax deduction if they do donate money. So that
Awesome.
was something that was raised at the last meeting. So
Thank you for checking that.
Which may be something when we roll this out, to make that a thing, like a push to, for people to donate money into it from just, as a way of sort of saying they support it.
mhm.
I have a question about the language, activities include but are not limited to. So I understand the not limited to, but how do you keep checks on what the committee or how this money is spent if it's not limited to, which would be it's in a number of places actually, but
And
if you look at 1A.
I saw that, and Linda or Jennifer, if you think it's different, but I also saw a section in here that if you look in a number, number 2 of that, under that one,
This
all
right here.
requested expenditures must be approved by the town council in accordance with the following procedures. And not only will the committee itself have to follow these rules, but it'll also be reviewed by the director of
Okay.
planning and development and the finance director. So there'll be some independent review to make sure that we're in compliance. Not that I think that anyone would try to do anything, anything but above board, but to make sure that we don't make any missteps. I felt comfortable with that check.
Okay.
And Sarah, to your point on number 1, I think the first sentence there was intended to be kind of that limiter that you were looking for, that the activities to retain and or create affordable housing within the meaning of Connecticut General Statute Section 8-30G. So that's your parameter. So
got it.
Yeah, we can't, it's got to be related to affordable housing on that.
Katie?
I have a question on the sources of funding. It says building permit fees, inclusionary zone fees. Is that the fee in lieu that we would
Yes.
charge?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's written well in the sense that it's a little bit open-ended, that some things that we may later create as funding mechanisms that we may not use in the beginning.
I think that's what a lot of the times when we're using that including but not limited to is because we cannot possibly think of every source, and we don't want to be in a position where we have to come back to the council for an ordinance amendment to accept funding.
Which, yeah, we want money, so
We don't want to turn it away.
Item 1D, is that what we had talked about, like programs that support these families if our
Yes.
affordable housing stock is that, so that's where that comes from. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
so 1D is that, yeah, that was the discussion that you had at the last meeting was if we get to the point where we're over 10%, so we're 10% or greater for affordable housing units, that would then open up the use of these funds for programs that provide assistance for households that essentially qualify for affordable housing. So that's the 80% of median income that is under statute who qualifies for affordable units.
And
And so that, yeah, so that was the idea of saying, yes, we can then use that to fund services that are helping people in that same income range.
Linda, could I just ask for us to maybe, instead of putting the 10%, refer to the general statute that requires the 10%? Do you know what I mean? Because if the
I-
legislature were to up it, just say to 15%, I
Yeah,
wouldn't want us to be having to come back and change this based on something like that.
let me see if I can figure out the best way to word that, because I need to read the statute 830G, because I know it basically is saying if you have 830G is not saying you have to have 10% affordable. It's saying if you don't, here are the the consequences.
So then can we say, provided we're in compliance with 830G?
What I may do is if we meet it may be the exemption requirements for the Land Use Appeals Act, that may be the way to phrase this, because essentially you're exempt from the provisions of 830G if you exceed that, if you have at least 10%. So that may be a way to phrase this. That
Okay,
if we meet, and we'll figure out the exact statute reference, but if we meet the exemption criteria per statute, then item D comes into play in terms of potential expenditures.
yeah, maybe we can start the sentence with that.
Yep.
Perfect.
yeah, I agree with Sam that I think it would make sense to start the sentence that we should have the trigger starting the sentence.
Okay.
I think it's an easier read that way. And I'm so happy we have this in here. I hope the day comes when we're over 10% and we're thinking about spending the money in other ways.
This would be one of the, I not against raising the mill rate, provided it's used, for something like towards our rainy day fund or something like this, minus the, barring anything else, just given what our current financial situation is. But this would be something that I'd be like all in on for sure. Anybody else have anything else? Again, this just shows how well drafted it is. I appreciate it. I saw Katie give the thumbs up.
I thought both of these were so much better written than Fairfield, so kudos.
That's Linda for you.
Whoever it was, so thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'm not seeing any other edits or comments or concerns. Would the group feel comfortable passing it with the idea that Linda and Jennifer will go back and be more specific with the language in taking our guidance so that we could vote on it today to then have ready for the next town council?
I'm comfortable.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah,
Um, Can I move that we accept the language of the draft of, is it draft or Mansfield? Is it still draft?
I think
Yeah, they're both it's the draft, Mansfield Affordable Housing or proposed composition and charge of the Mansfield Affordable Housing Committee and the draft Affordable Housing Trust Fund ordinance with the changes identified by the committee. If that makes.
I so move that we do that.
And what we're doing is we're recommending to the town council.
Yeah,
uh,
to forward these on to the town council for their consideration.
I
great. All in favor, raise your hand. Awesome. It passed.
So Accorsi moved and Berthelot seconded, is that?
Yep. And Jen, you and I can make sure we have the language of the motion right
Yeah, yeah.
when we do the minutes.
Sorry, that was too complicated to repeat.
You
I was
did it
gonna-
perfectly.
What?
Yeah.
Kathy's got her hand up. You see her?
I haven't participated much in this, but I just want to say since 2014, some of us have really been interested in affordable housing in town. And I can't thank you enough for all the work that you've done. It's real, this is awesome. Thank you very much.
Well, Kathy, I think it's kudos to you and Rebecca and others that we have the groundwork to where we're at right now because of you. And I'm fully hoping that you'll be one of the permanent committee members when this comes up. So,
If I'm not in the retirement home yet, but sure.
yeah, this could be your side gig.
There we go.
So, okay. Let me just take a look and at our agenda for tonight. The next thing is new business, which didn't have anything. I saw the communication from, it looks like regarding affordable housing in Mansfield submitted to the Human Rights Commission by Derek Cameron and Jane Creed, August 2021. And that's good to have that in the packet.
And then just, do you want to note the affordable housing, the Housing 2.0 forum that is going to be on October 19th that I sent to you was noted for the record.
Yes, and let me just make sure, because last night the mayor asked me about it and I froze. Because I did not know she was going to ask the specifics for it, but I'm pulling up the flyer that you had sent. And this is the second installment hosted by the Wyndham Region Interfaith Working Group. It is on Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday, October 19th at 7 p.m. It is virtual. And we can have people sign up. I was going to say we could make this part of the packet, but the packet's already here today. So I've posted it on Facebook. Go ahead.
I know an email went out already, but could we get another email? Because I meant to put it on my calendar and I see it's not there. So it is awfully important. That would be terrific.
I can resend it as we speak.
Thanks, Jennifer.
One question for the council members is this something, so do you expect this ordinance to be referred to an ordinance review committee, or do you think at this point, I'm just trying to prepare myself for if you think the ad hoc committee will essentially have served as the ordinance review committee for the trust fund?
You can make that argument. I mean, it does seem very reasonable. I don't anticipate pushback on that,
Okay.
but we might get pushback.
I know Charlie has certainly been supportive of all our efforts here, and wish he was here tonight because I think it'd be useful to have his opinion on this as well, just being on the town council. But I don't anticipate this needing to be referred, but we'll see what everybody else says once they have a look at it.
Well, and it also needs to be referred to the town attorney. We did not engage him
yeah.
in revising the Fairfield draft, so he'll need to look at this as well and make any changes that he sees as appropriate.
Is that something that can happen before our next town council meeting, or does it have to go to town council and do we have to refer it to him?
Ryan, I think we can just ask Kevin to look at this, correct?
That's correct.
I think that'd be useful. I think in fact that may make some other town council members feel more comfortable accepting it at the meeting if the town attorney doesn't have any objections to it. Or not objections, but input.
I don't think we'll accept it on the meeting, at the meeting. We historically look at it and then accept it the next time. I mean, it's possible, but
You'll have to schedule a public hearing. So is that something, so that may be something that we can recommend, scheduling a public hearing for the first meeting in November, or the second, depending on how you feel, given the fact that I think your first meeting happens after the election. So you may have a full slate of business.
So this will go on the council agenda for the 25th and with a tentative public hearing date of November 8th.
Yeah, as long as I would say that we shouldn't plan on that, just as the town council will have to
Right.
agree to it.
Yeah.
All right.
Future, so do we need to meet again as the ad hoc committee?
I think at this point, it'll depend on how things go with the council. But
That makes
If-
sense.
they could kick it back, right? They could kick it back to us for some reason.
Right. yeah,
we
so
don't-
your charge was the affordable housing plan and the trust fund ordinance. And so with this, if the council accepts it, I think you've completed your charge. And this may be your last meeting, but the council could send it back to you or ask you, or increase your charge. I don't know.
I hear you. Okay. And next item is adjournment.
So moved.
Great. Seconded by Sarah. All in favor, raise your hand. Awesome. Thanks,
Thanks.
everybody.
Good evening, all.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
everyone, for your service.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank
Really good
you.
work.
take
Hey, I
care.
could go have my supper now. Yay.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Katie. Bye,
See
everyone.
ya.
Bye.